Hi, I'm Rob Van Raphorst. Welcome to MBANow. The Senate recently passed a major regulatory relief legislation. Here to talk about it with us in the upcoming National Advocacy Conference is our Senior Vice President of Legislative and Political Affairs, Bill Killmer. Bill, thanks for being here.
Yeah, glad to be with you.
The Senate obviously just passed this major reg reform bill. Can you talk a little bit about it and what it means for our industry?
Sure. This is an effort that was aimed towards relief for community lenders. The political discourse is really focused on depositories, community banks, and credit unions. But we've been working literally for years, and certainly over the last several months in earnest, when the bill was marked up in the Senate Banking Committee in December, to ensure that there was some kind of relief for a broad array of our membership as well. So it includes more controversial provisions that would change the way that the Financial Stability Oversight Council can redesignate systemically important financial institutions, but on a more basic level for our members, it's pro-consumer and that would promote competition by allowing more labor force mobility through amending the SAFE Act and giving mortgage loan officers transitional authority to originate loans when they're moving jobs from a depository to a non-bank or across state lines. It would also amplify consumer protections with respect to energy efficiency PACE loans, applying the consumer protections under the Truth in Lending Act, TILA, to those loans, treating them as mortgages. They're often second liens, and we think that's important protection for consumers and protects lien priority with respect to our membership in the industry. There's also a really important provision that was tucked in as part of the substitute amendment that was voted on by the full Senate that would give additional protections to service members and veterans and surviving spouses if they were seeking to refinance loans under the VA home loan program. And then really importantly for our commercial multifamily members, there was a clarifying provision that would more accurately help regulators gauge what should or should not be deemed a high volatility commercial real estate loan. Frankly, it's about more sustainable construction and development that'll keep economic growth, particularly in different regions of the country. Community banks in particular will be helped by this, but all of our lenders, particularly depositories on the commercial side, we think that's a really important clarification for them and also for the regional economies that'll be improved as a result of those loans.
Now that it's moving through Congress, how can our members stay engaged on this issue?
Yeah, our members have been great in terms of sending thousands of letters in to try to encourage the procedural votes that were necessary to keep the bipartisan coalition of senators in support of this bill. There was a lot of opposition that came from consumer advocates and from those in the more progressive wing of the Democratic Party in particular. But throughout this entire process, there were 67 votes, Republicans and Democrats, that continued to move the bill down the line in the Senate. So doing what they have been doing will be incredibly important because the action really has moved to the House. The House has passed a number of standalone bipartisan bills, some of which were included in S-2155, the bill that we're talking about, Rob. But the House leadership believes there's room for a few more. It's a delicate bipartisan coalition in the Senate, and we'll see how the dialogue now, the ping pong back and forth between the House and Senate will go in terms of how the House elects to act on this legislation.
Let's shift gears for a second. NAC is coming up April 24th and 25th in Washington. What do our members need to know about it? What are some highlights from this year's conference?
Sure. GSE reform, it's kind of bogged down, a little lost momentum in the Senate. There's still the potential that some concepts will come out in the House that'll govern the debate in the Financial Services Committee within the next week or so, around the time of the Easter congressional recess. So there's still great urgency to work on this issue. Now that Senator Crapo, who's chairman of the Senate Banking Committee, has finalized the regulatory relief package, he can turn his focus now back to GSE reform. And so that'll be a major point of emphasis at the conference, Rob. No surprise there. And then this regulatory relief package, urging the House to take it up expeditiously, whether they want to add a few things to it or not. Obviously, that's a dialogue between Chairman Crapo and House Financial Services Committee Chairman Jeb Hensarling. But hopefully within the next couple of weeks or months, the House will act. There'll be a path forward to see how you can get language that's been reconciled and that's identical signed into law by the president. And we're strongly encouraged by the notion that the administration is going to weigh in on that bill, but that'll certainly be a point of emphasis at the conference. And then, making sure that we're protecting the government housing programs that play such an important countercyclical role, like FHA, making sure they have the resources that they need, discussions about what form, applying those resources or compiling those resources, whether that's a straight appropriations or an administrative fee on a per loan or a per book basis. That'll be an important conversation. Also the VA program, the USDA program. And then lastly, tax. Although we're past tax reform or the sweeping tax legislation that passed late last year, there's still a need to make sure that the regulators, Treasury and the IRS, get the implementation correct. So particularly with respect to our members that file as individuals, S-Corps, LLCs, a lot of emphasis on making sure that they get the comparable pass-through treatment that kind of tracks alongside that reduced corporate rate for hard C-Corps. So that and other issues on tax implementation will be a big point of emphasis at the conference as well.
If you could for a second, talk about the importance of our members attending and how they can sort of personally affect these issues.
Well, first, it's a great conference from a content standpoint and speaker lineup. HUD Secretary Carson will be there. Chairman Crapo, who I've mentioned several times, will be there to give a keynote address. We're going to have some pundits who are going to update folks on the status of the midterm elections and what to look for between now and then in November. But other members of Congress that are members of the House Financial Services Committee, both at receptions, and then we'll have Congressman Denny Heck, Democrat from Washington, Congressman French Hill, Republican from Arkansas, both on the Financial Services Committee, kind of kicking things off on Wednesday and kind of rallying the troops before they go to the Hill and take our message on key issues for the industry. I think the importance is always, Rob, that it's no longer constituency by proxy, us, the MBA staff, that are doing the work on behalf of the membership. It's the member themselves, right. The members themselves that are going to the Hill and talking to the individual staff people and the members of Congress, senators, and representatives, and explaining, putting in layman's language what these issues mean and why they're important to consumers and customers and to the industry on the whole.
Yeah, very important that they hear from their constituents.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks so much for stopping by and talking about it and talking about the bill too.
You bet.
Be sure to follow us on Twitter at MBA Mortgage and like Mortgage Bankers Association on Facebook and Instagram.